Hey guys, welcome back to American Adventure. In today's episode, I'll be working on the newest area right next to Bountiful Farms. So this area is going to be an extension to the planned industrial area, which is going to be called Town of Industry. And while designing some buildings and things for the Town of Industry, I actually grew into another land, which I'm going to be calling New York Waterfront. Because a lot of the buildings here kind of resemble New York-style buildings, especially the use of Ellis Island, which is one of the main structures in this small subland, which is based off an idea for Disney's America, is in New York. So it kind of made sense to kind of do some New York Main Street, a little bit like some old-fashioned apartment buildings and an emporium, and then later go on to do two different types of dock buildings, like a fish market and a regular cannery. And then a tugboat was also planned in the works too. So actually merged into another land. So at this point, I have 8 lands in total. This was kind of a surprise. Again, things when you're designing, you don't know what's going to be built, what's going to be designed out of something. So this just kind of was the accident of making New York Waterfront. And I feel like it's appropriate. So a lot of the things that I pulled for this land specifically was Tokyo Disney Sea and American Waterfront, which has a lot of influence already in this park in general. So this park of mine is already a mix of California Adventure, Tokyo Disney Sea, Disney's America, which doesn't exist, but it's fully inspired because of it. And it just kind of is going from there. I think this is actually working out really well. I like where this is going, and we're getting closer and closer to the end times for this park. I mean, the project's not done fully. I would say I'm about 50%, maybe not 50%, 60% done with American Adventure, but there's still a planned water park that needs to be built on the outskirts of the map. I will get to that maybe eventually, but right now I just want to finish American Adventure and just kind of go from here. But yeah, as I ramble for about 2 minutes or so, I'm now working on one of the towers for Ellis Island. So Ellis Island, to my knowledge, I did some research. I didn't really read into it on the wiki, but it is the basics is that it's an immigration station. So immigrants come over, they get checked out, they get basically their green card or whatever they need to at Ellis Island. They get checked out by hospital staff and doctors to make sure that they didn't bring any diseases from across another country, and they're let to stay in America. So kind of what this is. I'm just building the main building that's on this island, and the main building is basically just, I think that's where you do most of the checkup and the paperwork and all that good stuff to arrive to America, because they have to check you out. So the plan here was to make a smaller version of that building, because again, the building is quite large. When I looked at some pictures and I looked at some Google Maps, it is a quite large building. I do like the style of it with the brickwork and the stonework that goes on the corners and the iron, I think it's iron copper roofing that's on it. Right now I'm doing some adjustments, I'm getting rid of the second row of windows right here because it's too tall. I feel like the building's becoming really too tall, so I shortened a lot of things. I got rid of a lot of little details on it. Still trying to hold those details in, but this is kind of the objective. It's not supposed to be a full-on realistic replica. It's supposed to be an homage to it, or kind of a showing of it. So I decided to shrink some of the towers down and shrink the building down a little bit. This building is going to become the main restaurant for this area. So this restaurant can support basically Town of Industries land and New York Waterfront, so kind of does both. And this little Ellis Island's building is going to be called Melting Pot Cafe. That's what I'm calling it, because melting pot is kind of appropriate, because America is a melting pot. We have a whole bunch of different cultures here. Might as well have that pun in here as a restaurant. And this is probably I think my second big restaurant in this land. So I think it works out pretty well. This is just trying out different roof textures and different roof placements. That's going to later change and go away. And if you hear that in the background, that was a street sweeper that went by. Don't mind that. So I'm just figuring out the placement of everything. I'm not going to build the next tower. There's 4 towers exactly on this building, so I'm just going to do the simple copy and paste later. Some of the little details that I put on these, like domes, I used a peppermint piece because it's shiny like metal, and I just colored it the same color as the little domes and then just put them on top as accent. So pieces like that are helpful in bringing out some details. The roof is made of the oh god, the adventure theme. Jeez, I forgot the themes of these names and stuff like that, but I don't really know their names anymore because I just know where they are in the menu. So it's just all muscle memory at this point. So doing blueprint technique, just copying of the same thing over and over again to make my building process way easier, way faster. And then I'm going to copy these 2 towers and then copy them over onto the other side, making sure that there's no copies of places or overlaying of the same piece, because that's adding more pieces to the map, which don't need to happen. Because right now this map's FPS is now starting to struggle because I've put so much detail in this map already, and I'm not even done yet. There's so much more that needs to be finished, and that's what's going to happen. So we're going to do some tile toppings on top of the roof, because it is a tile roof that I've noticed from some of the pictures. There's not a lot of pictures online of like top views, so I'm guessing it's tile roof, and I think tile roof actually makes sense for this type of style of building. Then again, blueprinting again is a good thing to do to quick up your building process. I'm trying to remember what else I worked on. Well, I kind of jumped around from place to place, but I'm trying to make sure that this place is not so empty, because trees actually help bring in some of the details that you want. This is a little window thing I invented. It's not a real window, it's fake. It's 100% fake with the brick, the medieval arch. And then I use the, what's that? Is that a trellis? I think that's a trellis wall. It's wood, but I made it look like it's iron work or something, so I just painted it green. And that kind of actually worked out. And then I did these windows here with the windows inset and with the arch, and it actually works out really well. And then I made a little awning in front. That's the entrance to the restaurant, even though there's actually 3 entrances all over the place. So there's a lot of ways to get into this restaurant. I did do some outdoor seating as well for the guests, so you can either eat inside or outside. I don't remember what is in the restaurant. I think it's a coffee stand and something else. I don't remember, because, again, these little window details was actually a cool idea. I did the half detail brick details from the detail menu, and I just placed them behind the windows. That actually was a cool little technique I found out. Every time I do play this game, I do find some new ways to use pieces, and it's quite fun to discover things. But at this point, I think I've used every possible combination. There's probably more that if I went hunting for them, I'd probably find it and like explore. But at this point, there's a lot already done that I've basically have found out, so maybe there will be more, because I still have a water park to work on, so maybe building a water park is going to find us more discoveries of piece combinations or something, who knows. But yeah, this was a struggle to start moving, because I didn't know what was going to go here, but I'm glad that I placed this island prior, and it actually helped out that I didn't really change the island or the outcrop of that land. I didn't change it much since I put that in. Oh man, probably in episode 4 when I was working on, I think, the victory field. Yeah, that land never really changed. It just kind of made it on top, and then voila, there it is. I also put in a rowboats later next to Ellis Island, or next to the cafe, because it is called Melting Pot Cafe. Yes. Here comes one of our 3rd boats in the lagoon, or the lake. So I got to build a tugboat, and this was actually pretty fun to work on, because I've never really built a tugboat. Again, I want to make sure that the lake has at least 4 different types of ships in it, because right now we have a destroyer, a steamboat, now we have a tugboat, and then later I still need to build a sailing ship of some sort near Boston Harbor to represent, I think, the Boston Tea Party. Haven't really gotten to do that yet, and I should just jump onto it, but kind of busy this coming up weeks, so kind of taking it slowly on making videos, but it's okay. I do want to get this project done as quickly as possible. It's been almost a full year, I think, since I started it. But yeah, this tugboat actually gets longer in the back. You'll see later on that in future pictures or future footage, the back of the tugboat gets longer because I felt like it was too short. Because tugboats are in a weird, like, elongated fashion, so you have your cab and your engine house up in the front of the boat, and the back of the boat is more flattened out to hold cargo or something. And then you have these rubber, well, it's not really rubber, that'd be like wooden posts and stuff that are on the outside of the boats to kind of push up against other big boats like cruisers or tankers or something, because they're tugboats. Tugboats help bigger ships dock, and so that's kind of what I'm trying to imitate on these with some of the pieces and some of the. I used pillars, cylinders, and shapes. Most of the boat is made of shapes because it's actually the easiest thing to use. I didn't want to use any other piece that would actually like make it a little bit difficult. But again, construction anarchy also helps out with moving some walls off grid, and that actually helped out a lot because this is a 2 wide unit boat, and so everything else is free, not freehand, but locked to grid and kind of manipulating the look of things. The only things that I wish I could do on this, probably mods would help, would do some railings and stuff like that, but again, this project's supposed to be as modelless as possible, and I do like the look and the feel of this boat, and I did some chocolate pieces to help with the texturing of the hull, or the bottom of the, not the bottom, it's just the boat, and I did some, oh yeah, text on the letter 0, no, that's an O, sorry, that's an O to be representing a life preserver. And I thought that was a cool idea because we don't have any life preserver pieces. Then some pipes to help with the mechanical boat look, and then doors that lead up to the cabin and the engine room. And then some flags are, I think, appropriate for this boat. Yeah, I think the tugboat looks pretty good. I probably could put a second one, or I could put a fishing boat in the harbor, which I actually was thinking on doing it before I started doing some of the editing, but I kind of got lazy and stopped from there. Yeah, I could build a fishing boat of this era, because the era of the town of industry, did I make it the 40s? I think I made it the 40s, or the 30s. I need to double check my notes, because I think I made it something. I can't remember. So here comes the next couple buildings, because I felt like the edges of the lake were empty, and I feel like adding buildings or harbor stuff kind of works out. So this is where the huge inspiration of Disney's, Tokyo Disney Sea came through, because they have a lot of harbor buildings. Again, Tokyo Disney Sea is based off of like themes of ocean in different areas. So you have your Mediterranean harbor, you have American Waterfront, Cape Cod, Discovery Bay, which is kind of like a sci-fi area in a way, and then you have your Amazon Delta. And then, oh shoot, I can't remember the other lands. There's a lot of lands in Disney Sea. And then you have Mysterious Island. So, again, I'm going to pull from that again. And I went basically Google searching on to see what type of their harbor buildings look like. This is a cannery that I'm just going to make very generic. This is where it houses the bathroom, because I didn't have a bathroom building for the land. Because every land needs a restroom, because that's how a theme park is designed. You need restrooms kind of pretty close to each other so that guests don't get lost and, you know, pee on the floor. That would not be good. So we went and basically, this is a very giant restroom with a ATM. Yeah, so just figuring out the palette of the trees here too. Trying to change up the tree palette a little bit, because each land is supposed to be very like different and significant in its trees and foliage, so I try to do some different stuff. Like I used the birch trees near the main Ellis building or melting pot, so that was a new tree. Well, I've used the tree before, but I don't use it often because of how, well, kind of generic it is. But again, birch trees kind of work. It's a kind of an American thing, because birch trees are very abundant here. Probably on the East Coast. I'm not actually that sure, but I know that I've seen pictures of stuff, because I live on the West Coast, so California and all. I see a lot of palm trees and pine trees, and Yeah, I don't see birch. Actually, there might be some birch trees out here. But regardless, what I'm working on now, dock stuff. So making wooden pillars to help with the dock look, and I think this actually worked out really well. I like the idea of doing these little logs that support the docks basically, and I do like this building. It's one of my favorites, even though it's not as fully detailed as, let's say, Ellis Island's building, which is full on brick and decoration of corners and stuff like that. But I think this works out just as well. I did put a little sign here. I called this one, I think, East Bank Cannery, so just suggesting it is the East Coast, so might as well just call it East. I could have called it New York or something, but I kind of figured that was kind of too on the news, so I kind of just did a very generic name, so it worked out for me. Oh yeah, I was going to change it to East, but I think East Banks makes more sense, so playing out with the sign here. Those signs are made of window pieces turned around on grid 8, I think. Now here comes some of the fun little things that I did. I did a melting pot cafe sign because I felt like it's a restaurant, needs a sign. So I used a cauldron from the spooky pack. And made it like a yellowish because it's supposed to resemble like a soup or something, or melted cheese. I don't know, but I've seen pictures of something like that of a melting pot, so I kind of went for that. And then I did melting pot cafe. I think I did it below. Yeah, below was easier because of how the letters kind of go big. Unfortunately, the letters can't go any smaller. I wish they did, but I do understand that maybe if they went too small that you can't read it. So I have to accommodate how big the letters are and kind of fit them into a proper square. The steam that comes out of the pot are made of the Perthenter seed. Oh my god, I can't even say it. Oh my god, I'm so bad with words. See, I'm gonna leave it in. I don't care. They're curved pieces on the text engine. I know what they're called, but I have difficult time with words. Moving on. More borders on the sign to help it pop, and then the melting pot cafe sign, and then lights underneath the pathway to hide it. And I do change the font to a more of a better. I don't know what font I used, to be honest. That's I don't remember. Well, moving on to the next thing. So transitions between the Bountiful Farms and New York Waterfront was kind of a simple way to do it, because you can see on the pathway I went from a dirt to a asphalt type of pathway, and I did burial grounds to kind of cut off the edges of those paths to kind of make it look different. So that was kind of my transition over there, and then I go from a little bit of a mountain range, well, a little bit of a hill, right into a building. So kind of actually worked out. That tree line actually helps cover up most of the backstage building right there. So the brick building and the gray building are going to be the same. Same thing with the Emporium you'll see later will be at the end of the street. This brick building here is going to be the deli, New York Deli. So this is a store that's actually pulled from Disney Sea, because there is a restaurant there called New York Deli, and it's actually a very generic restaurant that just sells, deli stuff. So I think I put in there pretzels and a Subway, a sub shop. Yeah, a sub shop. I think. I need to double check. It's probably that's what it is. Because it is. Because I think there's a drink stand in the Melting Pot Cafe, so I didn't want to put another drink stall in the vicinity because they'll eat up each other's profits and stuff like that. So I kind of keep it different. So when it comes to American buildings are actually pretty simple and plain. So how do you make something that's plain interesting? That's really hard to do. So I tried to add a lot of accents on like the edges of the walls, the corners of the walls with the brick detailing. This brick building next to the red one, this gray one, I kind of incented it, I pushed it inward, even though in real life they would actually be up against each other and lined up perfectly down a street, because the street's straight. So, but I've noticed in like theme park design, especially Disney Sea, that they make the buildings go in and out, so they're like stepped back and forth, and that's like, okay, might as well do that here to make it look interesting, even though it's not realistically that's how you build a city. You build the city as straight as possible because you have city blocks and stuff. That is spelled wrong, New York Deli, because again, I'm not good at spelling, and I'm trying to fix that, or trying to notice when I do a typo, but I do fix this later on because I've done so many typos on this map already with the signs, but I'll just fix them and then moving on to trying to build, I think, the Emporium, and this street here actually leads into the town of industry, which will be a tilt coaster Iron Forge ride and the automotive factory car ride based off the Model T or something. So those are the rides out there. New York Waterfront really doesn't have a ride. It has a rowboat like station, but that's it. So it's not really like a legit big land. It's just a small subland off of the industrial area. I think that actually works out. I do like the idea of exploring more of these brick and industrial type of places. So we go from the downtown area and then it translates into the more industrial gritty area of New York. Even though Ford he made his stuff, I think, in Detroit. I need to double check. It's probably Detroit, but that's a different city entirely. But I can do a mix because again, it's a theme park. Doing a mix of cities kind of off of the same theme actually works out because American Waterfront at Disney Sea does exactly that. It pulls different building styles from different cities of America and it kind of puts them in one, and actually works out really well, and I do like that type of aesthetic, so that's kind of what I'm going to go here for. And I'm pretty happy with the execution of it. I still need to add more details to the land as I build through. I'll probably think of some other details I can use with shapes or another candy piece as usual, because again, I've used the candy pieces to their full advantage, and I do like them the most. They're like the best pieces to use in almost any way, form, or fashion to make something unique, or not as intended. So here I'm just doing some window stuff. I did a different decoration on top of the building. That's a pot from the Adventure pack. Yes, those are the pots from the DLC Test Adventure. So I kind of did those pieces on top. That was actually fun. And then a dome. This is a very simple Emporium building. So this is kind of copying one that's actually from, I think, Disney Sea. I don't remember what the name of that Emporium is. I don't think it's the Scrooge shop, because the Scrooge McDuck shop is the pawn shop, I think, in Disney Sea. Man, I really should go to Disney Sea once things calm down, because that would be one of my bucket list places to go. It would be Disney Sea, Paris maybe, Disneyland Paris. What's the other places I want to go? Hong Kong Disneyland maybe, because they have some different lands that normally you don't have in a Disney park. And then maybe if I'm really ambitious, go to Shanghai Disneyland. But those are just kind of my bucket list things to go to. Some of these buildings here, as you transition around, we're going to turn into other buildings. I think I show some of that building work. I don't know if I remember if I recorded it. I kind of skipped around with my recordings this round. Kind of try to keep it I don't know what you want to call it. Not convenient. What's the word? I'm looking for a word and I can't find it. It's oh well. I'm gonna forget it because I'm trying to make sure that the footage is cohesive. Yeah, cohesive. Friday. I'm having horrible word output. It's fine. It's fine. Moving on. Those little dirt spots was going to be the sign for Town of Industry. That later changes. Yeah, as the ash, it's basically ash paint on the ground. That's just telling me where the next land is. It helps out with planning and pre-planning and stuff like that. That later migrates and changes, so that's fine. I did some window work on this tower. I was going to make some diagonal windows out of shapes or something, but I kind of was lazy so I decided to. I got really lazy. Toward the end, I wanted to get some things finished. I might have to go back into this building and kind of fix it up a little bit, maybe add some more decorational details on the windows maybe, or on the roof. I mean, I like it, it looks okay. I'm not in love with that building, but it works for me. Now this is one of my favorite buildings that I did. This is not exact. a close representation of a building from Disney Sea called Liberty Fish Market. So it's a giant fish market concrete to brick building. It's like a very long rectangle, and that houses a restaurant and a couple of food stands for American Waterfront. So I felt like it was appropriate to have this type of building in my New York waterfront because you would have a place to go sell the fish after it's been caught. So I kind of made my own fish market in a way. This houses a hot cocoa and pretzel stand. Very simple. It's a simple place to go get some food and stuff, and so I decided to make it out of brick, some window arches, and then there's the depot in there as well. So I felt like this building was the best way to go, and I think it's a good transition because again I have another land next to it. It will be on my Coney Island, and I think this is the perfect transition point. So I'm going to use a building as a transition. It's not going to be different on either side. It's going to be the same on both sides, but that's my transition. So you can see this building from the. It would make sense because you're on Coney Island. You would expect to see warehouses nearby, and then you would expect to see warehouses in a New York waterfront. So that's kind of what I did here. This is really cool. I figured out a new pillar design that's kind of using some brick detailing. So I took the detailing from the corner details, bricks from the detail page, and I did those corners off of grid 8, and I finished up the centers with the flat ones, or how do I explain? Yeah, they're the flat ones, and I kind of just built them and kind of interlocked them, and then I blueprinted that pillar, and that pillar is just one of the best pillars I've ever made. I love this technique. I'm probably going to use it more often in other builds. Now, if I maybe spaced it out, maybe I can add gray in the back or something. But that's the coolest way to do a pillar. It actually makes this building a little bit more unique and has character to it. I really, really like how I did that. Again, construction anarchy to the rescue. That is the best way to do it because there's no way to do it in vanilla. Well, actually there is. You just use shapes, but that's a lot of shapes. I didn't want to really do that. So, as the fish market kind of built itself, it was appropriate to put a little timestamp on it. It says 1905. Might as well. Now we're coming up to the end of this, but we're going to take a live tour through it. I'll show you some other little details that I did and some other things that I worked on, and then plans of what's going to happen next. But I felt it was appropriate to have a fishing net crane. So in California Adventure, there's a little thing that is like a picture op, and you can walk into this little net, and it's supposed to be suspended in the water, and you're supposed to feel like you're in a fish net with fish in it. And I was going to do that here, but I felt like the net was too big with how big the paths are, so I felt it didn't really work out. So I scrapped it and just made it just a regular crane going at diagonal. It's going to support a fishing net, and in this I made the fishing net out of strawberries. Again, I love the candy pieces. They're so versatile, and this is the best way to do a fish net in my opinion. I'm going to need to build a couple more maybe in the area, or maybe have the fishing nets piled in a boat. So yeah, that's why I need to build a fishing boat, I think, is to add to it. But this was a fun little thing to figure out. I just did a whole bunch of strawberries in it because it looks like netting. If you look a little like dots on it, it looks like actual netting, and it's kind of big. I tried to do some things that are hanging off of that. It didn't work out, so I kind of removed that. But yeah, I'm gonna meet you guys in the live through very soon. Okay, here we are in New York waterfront. So, let's see here. What's the first couple things that we need to show off? So here's the land as it sits right now. There might be some additional things that I might add to it later on because, you know, things change, and well, I change things all the time when I go to different places and lands and things like that. So we'll just do some close-ups of things. Like here's the fishing net, and then I added a Liberty Fish Market sign on both sides of the marketplace. Added some details like these fishing nets and the buoys out of shapes and things like that. So like this area is going to be the new, well, this will be the Coney Island amusement park area. Not working on that. And then here is Ellis Island with the Melting Pot Cafe. Here's the wonderful little tugboat. And I mentioned that I extended the back end of it. I'm still contemplating on adding a fishing boat right here. I think it would actually fit and it'd be appropriate. And then there's a rowboat station over here. I extended this walkway to kind of give it a little bit more, well, better guest flow, if you want to call it. Actually, I want to put some of these umbrellas over here. Stuff like that. Hold it. Yeah, we'll just put one on there and then maybe one over here. That clips to that. I don't want it. Okay. Then here is the transition between the two different lands. So you go from dirt to an asphalt type of sidewalk. And then here's our buildings. I fixed the sign and some other things. And here's some of the things I've been working on a little bit. I added a extra pathway that actually connects between Bountiful Farms to the town of Industry or New York Waterfront. So there's this little shed, a covered path that kind of protects it. Well, guests can't see backstage, and backstage kind of goes underneath, so it's kind of just hiding this back here. So these are my transition buildings from like New York to more industrial like village, where like the workers live in these buildings, and then here's my first factory, accompanied by a flat ride, and then later on will be probably the dark ride will be over here for the automobile one, and then the steel forge coaster will be like here. And there's a pond that I want to make go with it, kind of have the coaster go over and stuff like that, but that's later. And then this is the sign for Town of Industry, so it's kind of like an in-between land. But yeah, things are moving along quite quickly, and I'm excited to see where the industrial area takes me, or unless I go this way and start working over here, but I don't feel like I need to. I'm probably going to add some more details around this area to make it a little bit more waterfront-esque. Yeah, I hope you guys like this episode, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.